Okay, let's begin. Thanks, Shane, for joining again, and good to have you, as I said. And then hopefully the other folks have no problem reviewing the recorded lecture. Last time we do have a problem with the YouTube recording. It's a technical issue, not really technical issue. It's a mix-up on the streaming. So, however, everything was good with the Canvas recording. So you can just review the Canvas one. I do notice that the recording will not be there for too long, about 3 weeks, I think 2 to 3 weeks. Like the first one, if I look at it, I think the first one is not available anymore. As you can see, there are a lot of files in the server, so they are not going to keep all of those recording forever. So the first one is not available anymore. The second one seems to be still available. So please, if you do need to review the lecture, please do that within the 2 weeks, within the 2 or 3 weeks at the most, after the lecture is completed. Otherwise, you may not be able to review it. Of course, whatever lecture I provide, the material is in the slides and also in the book. And but however, I do have some live demo since we do not have the tutorial, as I mentioned to you last time. So I do a little bit of live demo in class using Eclipse. So if you need to review those, please do that within 2 or 3 weeks after the lecture has been completed. Okay, just remind you. Right now, everything should be working. The YouTube recording should be working too, hopefully, so we will not miss it. Now, one thing about next Thursday, just give you a heads up. Next Thursday, the 6th of April, I have a jury duty notice that I may have to go. So since I do not know until the night before the 6th, so I will go ahead and record this section. So Shane, you do not need to attend on the 6th because I will record it, okay? And I probably will do it on Wednesday afternoon. So if you need to review it, and go ahead and do that. And but however, I will not be in class since this is a branded class, a recorded class. So we do not need to take attendance or do not require someone to be in class anyway. So that will work out. So I'll do that, and it will be at least an hour and a half to 2 hours of recording, just like usual. So you can review that afterward. I'll send you a notice once the recording has been completed and available. Okay, just give you a heads up. I'll remind you again and send you folks a notice or announcement in Canvas, so you will know on the 6th, next Thursday. Okay, just a heads up. Now, before we start, let's go to full screen mode so we can take a look on the schedule and our calendar. Okay, give me 1 second. Everything is working. Making sure before we go to full screen mode. Okay, good. Let's go to full screen mode. Now I reboot the system every time, just to make sure before I come in, after I come in, and before the class start, make sure everything starts from fresh, and we should not have any problem with the recording. So full screen mode is on. It looks okay. So the conference already started and we are recording. Okay, and then first take a look on the calendar. All of you did well. You already submit the external JavaScript, and I haven't graded yet, and I can't wait for everyone to complete it. And you did. All of you submit the at least I review a couple of them, and one of them already sent back comments. Because that person has some Chris, I think, has some question on the JavaScript, so I already replied back to him, and hopefully he can provide an update to his submitted also to correct the problem. Okay, but all in all, everything's good. You folks seems to have really good knowledge of the HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, even programming background. So looks so far everyone is catching up very well, and know a lot of stuff even before we have teacher. So that's good. It's easy for that. And then most of you or all of you have chimed into the discussion. There is a discussion to be due this Friday. I think one person, I think Maria already put in her comment, and the others please chime in and have a discussion on that. Okay, and also there is an assignment, another discussion. Since this class is a blended class half the time, so we do have multiple discussion in 1 week. Just to ensure the discussion is ensure you to do some research and at least read the book, and then work with the team to provide input. So it's the way to learn, okay, to interact with each other, okay. So reviewing the recorded section, the lecture, is okay, but not as good as you actually go in and do it yourself, right? So do some research and have a discussion in the forum that will help you and help others too. So thanks for doing that. And for the assignment today, I mean this week, which is the there's no title for it, but anyway, assignment 2.1. It asks you to build an 8x8 chessboard, okay, and it particularly mentioned page 58 in the book. However, if you pay attention to the book, the page number sometimes is not correct. The reason is it really depends. Like this is page 50, not 58. The reason is depends on the Kindle book is a little bit strange. Depends on the font size you set up, so it will page set up accordingly. So the page can be longer and shorter. So the page 58 doesn't really mean page 58. I'm going to change that. It is actually this listing 3.1, okay, that we are talking about 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 listing of the HTML, CSS, and then the JavaScript. I'm going to talk about it in today's demo, since this is an assignment. And I want to review this using the material-wise. We don't have to cover a lot in the slides, so I'd rather use this since the mentioned the assignment want you to review this. So I'm going to go over this a little bit, make sure you understand how to create this bingo card, and using the same mechanism to create the 8x8 chessboard for the assignment purpose. Okay, that's what we're going to do in the second half of today. Okay, about half an hour. Okay, because the lecture, we have 2 sets of lectures, so we'll do that first before we do the look at the bingo card. I'm sorry. Okay, so that's the assignment, and that's what we're going to do today. Okay, let me see what else you need to go over. Other than that, I think you folks are doing very well. So let's go ahead and begin the lecture, and after that we'll spend about half an hour to look at the bingo card and how it related to the assignment 2.1 for your 8x8 chessboard. Okay, let me see, make sure I cover everything. Yes. Now let's stop the full screen mode. Everything seems to be still working, so let me stop the full screen mode. Okay, now we stop the full screen mode. We are going to do a presentation first. Today we have 2. One is the operators expression 1, and then we'll go also over to the operators and expression 2. Okay, for today. And on Thursday, we'll do the loops and array. Okay, with these 2 lectures, it will cover the assignment 2.1 for the chessboard, which require you to do arrays and the loops. Okay, that's what we're going to do this week, so you can complete the assignment at the end of the week. Okay, those 2 are pretty straightforward, loops and array. I think if you use other programming language, you probably are familiar with those items, so it should not take you long to follow or to work on the assignment because of that. Let's begin with the lecture first. Okay. Now, these 2 lectures rely somehow heavily on the tutorial, which we don't have. Okay, so but don't worry about it. As I said before, the tutorial are quite simple. Okay, you can find them in the W3C school on a particular topic like operators, if you needed to, and loops on array if you needed to. So those are common topics in those tutorials. You can easily find them in the W3C school. Go to the link that provide in the module you should be able to go to those websites. And if you need to, I think most of you already have the knowledge. But if you need to refresh your memory, go over there and do the tutorial. But we'll go over the slides anyway, just to be sure we cover the material. Okay, so that's why I mentioned all the tutorial pages, okay, which we don't have. So as we mentioned before, the way JavaScript works is all about elements in the HTML file. And elements in the HTML files are objects. Okay, individual elements are like objects. So you can go into and using the dot notation, since they're objects, you use the dot notation to find a particular element, okay, and particular value and field in the element. And then you can change it using JavaScript capability. Okay, so it's from top down. You find the values here, like this as example. Okay, so you go from the body, go to the form, and go to the using ID to find them, and then place the value inside. Now we did one before. Remember last time and in the book also in the chapter 2 or 3, they show you how to get element by ID. So once you find the element, you do the inner HTML, you find the field, the particular data area, and then you can change it, okay, replacing it. And we did that last time also. So this is the normal way how you find elements in the HTML through JavaScript, and then you can modify them as needed. And all of you should be familiar with DOM, Document Object Model. Document Object Model, DOM. If you're not, please go back and review it, because I don't think we have anything to cover in the slides for DOM. So you should be familiar with DOM in the previous class. If you don't, please go back and review it. Okay? Next. So, as we said before, when you're trying to locate it, you always find out from the outermost object and then move toward to the target. Like in this case, you want to find out the time, the date. Then you go through from the highest, the body, go through the form, go through the date value, and then set up the value. Okay, and change it. Okay, so the same thing is another example. So, event driven. We have used one of this feature last time, event driven, on a button. Remember in the example I provide, and also in the book I think it has it too, is you can create a button, okay, and then you can dynamically activate your JavaScript function when you click on the button, on click. Once you click the button, then it will call the JavaScript function and then do things that you need, like modifying the HTML page, what we did last time in our demo too. So that's what you could do, okay? So that's called on-event processing. That means, now the two things we tried last time, one is on load, window on load. When the window, that means your particular page, I mean the window display of your HTML, you can do window on load and then call a JavaScript. Normally we do that for initialization purpose. Okay, so we call it init function, and then that is by on load. You can also do that when you click a button or move the mouse. Okay, so that's on the event. Okay. Let's look at others. This is the example we have used last time. Okay, an event handler, like a button. When you do an on click, you can call calculating total from your JavaScript. So you include a JavaScript, including that function. Then when you have an input button, you click, then it will call that function. Okay. There are quite a few of them, and I'm sure you're familiar with some of those. So, like the window, the document, overall event handler, we have the onload. We do it last time. You also have on unload and others. Okay, check them up and try it if you have time. Okay, so making sure onload is commonly used, particularly when you want to initialize something using your JavaScript. So you will do the window onload like we have done last time. Other event handler also have on focus, okay, and changes. When like the text field change, then you can do on change, okay, on select and on submit and others. Okay. We also have used like the mouse and keyboard handler. We have like used on click last time, and of course you can have others like on keyboard, on key down, key press, and others. Try them out, and quite obvious the name already said, okay, what it means and when it's used. You can try those out. Okay, we have done the on click for the button. We have done the window on load last time. Okay, try some of those yourself. Okay, and making sure the JavaScript is called. If you're not sure the JavaScript is called, remember we use the alert command and put it in right inside your function, the first line in your function. And once you click the button, okay, then the alert pop-up will come up. Then you know whether the function is called. That's the easiest way to debug it, making sure the connectivity is there for the JavaScript functions. I think that's what happened last time on a quiz on the issue. Is if you put alert statement inside, then you will know that particular JavaScript may not have been called. Okay. Anyway, so that's the technique we want to use to at least to debug it if it's needed. So please try out some of the event handling. Okay. So the syntax is always an element and an event, the simplest form. Okay. Like last time I did was I put a button on click equal to calling a JavaScript function. Okay. An element, of course, is the element in the form in HTML file, and the event, one of those that in previous page, and the action that you create, whatever you want to do. And like this, you have the body on load and calling this. Okay. Okay. So try some of those, making sure you can use them, and making sure your JavaScript function is called. Put an alert statement inside the first line of the JavaScript function, then you know. Next, API, Application Programming Interface. Okay. Of course, every language, programming language, have application programming interface, and they are coming up with libraries. Some of the libraries are pre-built objects, properties, or methods, that functions are pre-built for the objects, so you can use them. Okay, which is really handy. All you have to know is the name, okay, of those items. The name is the object, the properties, and the methods, and then you can just call them. Okay, just like treating them like object-oriented objects. Okay, they are pre-built, so you can just use it. Okay, we'll show some of the math objects methods too. Okay, and some of them are pre-built global functions that you can use. Okay, some of them are constants. Okay, and already provided. You don't have to find it. You just have to know the name of it. Okay, so they're all provided. Of course, you can go to W3C. You'll find out more of the API provided for JavaScript purpose. Okay, now don't mix up with the W3 School and W3C. W3C.org, I think, is the organization setting the standard for a lot of things. Okay, the World Wide Web purpose. W3 School is a private .com. W3school.com, I think, is a independent website for setting up, providing tutorial for the web developers. Okay, it's a little different. Okay, make sure you know. Next, data objects in the API. Okay, best practice. First thing, naming convention is important for yourself and for others, because when someone reads your code, they will then know what that is just by looking at the name. So the best practice is the object identifier using Pascal case. Okay, other names we use camel case. Pascal case and camel case are the same, except Pascal case, let's take a look on camel case. Camel case is like this date variable. The first one is lowercase, and then every other word, the other words will start with a capital. That's camel case. Okay, so date variables. But if it's Pascal case, then date D will also be capital. So the common practice or best practice is use the Pascal case for object identifier. Okay, when you want a name for an object, you want a capital case. But for other variables, you use camel case. The good thing about that convention is that most people, or all people using it, then when you read a piece of code, it's easier for you to know when they use a Pascal case, you know it's an object identifier. And everything else is just a variable, common variable. Okay? So like this, the date start with capital, you know it's an object. Okay, of course there's only one word, but still it starts with capital, so you know it is an object. And date variable, you know it using a camel case, so it's a variable name or object. Okay, it's not a identifier. Okay, it's an instance of an object. Okay, so date's property, we'll look into it a little bit, is to finding out the date and time. Okay, or setting the date and time, which is commonly used on a website, as you can see. Okay, so we'll take a look on it. And we have the date method. Okay, all objects come with the data and also the methods to manipulate the objects. Okay, that's what we're going to take a look on. An object must be built. Now, this date object is already pre-built because it's already in the API. So you don't have to build the date object. It's already did it for you. All you have to do is know how to use it. But as you know, all objects have constructor. The constructor is used when you instantiate, called instantiation. Okay, that means you are creating a object from the definition. You're initializing an object. So when you do that, the object constructor will be called to construct an object, okay, from the object definition or the class. Okay, and the new is the keyword to do that. For example, you want to create a date object from the date definition, so you use the identifier date and provide the needed information for date constructor, and you do a new that will create a new object of the date type using the data you provide to that object. Okay, make sure you understand that. So this is a statement in the JavaScript to create to instantiate an object, a new object, using the date definition by the data that you provide. Okay. So let's take a look on it. Okay. So a lot of times methods or functions, and constructor is one of them, a special function or method for the object, is called overloaded. I don't know you know the term overloaded. If you don't, what it means. Okay, overloaded means is for a function of the same name but can have different parameter list with different data set. Okay, That means you can call the date function with multiple data, or you can call it with other set of data. It depends on how the date function was defined. So one date function can accept nothing. You can just call day without any arguments in there, or you can call day with a set of data to initialize it. So that's called overload. You overload the date constructor function at least two. One is without any argument. One is with the full set of the arguments. And both will construct a date object. The only difference is one is using your own data that you provide. The other one is using the default. By default, the date used the current time. Okay? So the date object, of course, a year, month, day, hour, year, month, day of the week, hour, minute, and second are numerical values. Okay. However, be careful, for the month value is from 0 to 11, not 1 to 12. This is how programming works. A lot of things start with 0 as the base, not 1. Okay, 1 is actually the second element. Okay, so remember, 1 is February, not January. Okay, December is 11, so it's always 1 less. That's how it started on all this programming, because they are C structure like programming. Okay, so start from 0 to n minus 1, which is 11. Okay, and the time is a 24 hours format. So you just have to know. Once you know, then you can start a date, create a date object by inputting all this value, and you can set a object with that time, like a birthday or something. Okay, a specific time and date you want to set up, and you can have a date object for that purpose. Why we want to do that? Why we use a date object? Because once you have that, there are many methods coming with an object pre-built, so you can manipulate the date and time. Okay, that's the purpose, right? Using objects, because there are methods. Okay, and you can manipulate the object properly. So that's the date object. Okay, as I said before, it's an overloaded constructor, so you can call day without anything. Okay, or you can call day with multiple arguments like the previous page. If you don't put anything, by default is using the today's date, current information. Okay, and since we don't have the tutorial, you can go to the W3 school and look at the date information, and you'll find more about it. Okay, there are many tutorial websites they can find out. Just do a Google, you'll find out too. Okay, for objects, this is the first time we talk about objects, but this is important because JavaScript, even though it's not an object-oriented programming language, it is an object-based programming language. That means you can manipulate the objects. To do that, you have to understand what they are, what they mean, right? For all the objects, there are getters and setters. In OOP, object-oriented programming design, you want to hide your data from the user, because you don't want them to change your data and corrupt your object. Imagine it's a database record. If you let the user go in and change your data, then you are going to put your data record in danger, and the whole database could be in danger because of the integrity of the database will be corrupted. Once you have the database corrupted, it will take a long time to recover, and this is one of the most costly problem in the data processing world. So you do not want to do that. So in the OOP world, we try to hide your data from the external user. But since you do that, then how can they access to it? What they need to do is using getters to get the data. So they call your function to get data out of the object. Or they can do a setter to set the data in the object going through your function. You say, what's the difference? They still do. They still can change it. Yes, they could. But before they could, they go through a function of yours. That means you have full control of what data that will be put into that record. You can validate it, making sure all the data is good, making sure it's compatible, making sure it will not cause any problem, okay, before you accept it. But if they change it directly, you cannot do that. But since they go through you, the getter and the setter, particularly the setter, you can change it and modify it and making sure it's correct, and maybe return back an error saying that the data provided is not compatible. Then the user can submit another data for that particular purpose. So that's what they call getters and setter, to access to the attribute values of the date object. Okay, so you have an object called this date. So since you use camel case, so you know it's the object created from the date definition. Once you have that created, you can do a get second dot get seconds. Okay, it's camel case again. By default, those are provided. All these are provided by the API. All you have to do is create a date object, and then using a dot notation, call that function, and then you will get the seconds for that particular object. Okay, and of course minute, hours, date. Date is the date of the month. Date is the date of the week. Also, Sunday start with 0. Monday is 1, 2, 3, up to 6 is Saturday. So please remember those convention, just like months. Okay, start from 0, not from 1. So of course you can get the full year, you can get time. Now time is tricky. You get to say get time. It will retrieve the time. It's a value. It's a huge number in milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. That's the declared born day of Unix, January 1st, 1970. So all day time, the date, current time is reference to that January 1st, 1970. It's a huge number, of course you can see. Okay? So to do that, sometimes it's easier to see which time is, if you just want to compare two time. So you can just get time instead of getting the day, the month, and things like that, or year. You can just get the absolute time, okay, and compare those two times, then you know which one is prior to the other. Okay, that's the quickest way, instead of looking at the month and the dates. Okay, last on the day object. So as we said, we have the getters. Now these are the setters. Those are important, as I said. They will protect your data. The getter only reading the data, so it's okay. You don't have to protect it. Just give them the value that you have. But the setters are the one that will protect your data. So once you have object defined, you do the get seconds. You set the seconds and minutes and others, all the data required. Okay, and you can, of course, these are pre-built, but if you have to do your own getter and setter, you do the same thing. You have to protect your data, you verify the data, making sure the seconds are not more than 60, right? You cannot have more than 60 seconds, or 59 up to, okay? So you have to check it, it's from 0 to 69, 59, I'm sorry. And so is the minutes, and then the hours, you know, things like that. So you have to validate the data before you put it in. And so your date object is correct. But of course, these are pre-built, so it's all done for you already. Okay. That's it for the first part of the lecture. Okay. So we have gone through the basic things of objects. Okay. And as we said, an HTML is an object file. Okay. Each of the elements treated as an object, you can find them and manipulate them. And you always go from the top down, from the body, or not from the document, the window, and go all the way down to your element and to their values, and you can manipulate them. And we also show you one of the objects, system predefined object through the API, the date object. Just an example, show you how to manipulate an object, and we show you what are getters and setters for an object and why we do that. Okay, so that's the basic understanding you need, okay, on objects and how to use them. Okay, hey Shane, thanks for coming back. And so we are done with this for now, lecture wise. Let's go to the second lecture. As I said earlier, we'll continue with the lecture. Let me lower it up first. This is the second part of the lecture on operators and expression 2. Okay, so we just finished 1, as I summarized what we have done on 1. Now we are going through the second one. Okay, after that we'll take a break, but we will not take a break now. After that, we'll take a 5 minutes break, and then we'll go to the live demo on Eclipse. Okay. So I have some water first before I continue with the second set. Okay, let's continue. So we'll learn about arithmetics, conditions, binary unary operations, logical operators, and understand the math objects and how to use them. Okay, and how JavaScript works with those values. We know how to define variables, but we'll look at how we can use it, manipulate them, and also how to do runtime delay and interval commands. Just a briefing on it. Okay, you need to use them. Okay, let's begin. Operators. Okay, when you have variables, you have data, you want to manipulate them. Okay, and we have operators like the plus, minus, multiplication, division. Then of course, to have operator, you must have operands that to work on, right, by the operators. Those are the variables and expression that operators can act upon. Okay, just the term. I think all of you already know. We also have a term called expression. Okay, an expression, you need to be syntax legal. It's a group of operators together and form an expression. The expression will come up with a value. So it will be evaluated based on the operators and then come up an value. It can be another variable or a value, or can be a boolean and other stuff. So you can combine operators on operands within the expression and get a value out of it. We have seen 2 already. One is the additional sign or concatenation. Okay, it's overloaded. That means plus can be for addition, 1 plus 5, or can be used for string concatenation. I think we did that last week. We talked about that. Equal is not equal sign. It's an equal sign, but it's for assignment purpose. Assignment. Okay, we'll take a look on those. So there are different types of operators: arithmetic, relational, logical, and assignment. Okay, we know the plus is arithmetic, we know the equal is assignment. We have to know the orders, how those operators work on first. And arithmetic operations are simple, just what you have learned in grade school. Okay, same thing. Okay, multiplication and divide first before you do addition and subtract, and you have parentheses go first. Things like that are same as the basic arithmetic, no difference. Okay, operators with higher precedence will evaluate first, like the parentheses, like the multiplication. Okay, those will be done first. And operator association. Okay, and we'll look at those. Okay, binary, simple, basic arithmetic binary, work on two operands in expression, 1 plus 2, right? Unary means only one operand. Okay, so there's some of those. It's not in arithmetic, but in programming language we have called increment operator, double plus. It can be put before the variable or after. One is called prefix, pre-increment. This is post-increment. Okay, there are differences. By themselves, stand alone, then the effect is the same. The pre-increment means before this statement is executed, it will increment a var first. Post increment is it will not increment a var until the statement is executed, then it will increment a var afterward. By themselves, stand alone, there's no difference, right? But if you have like a var this plus 1 and this plus 1, then things change, because the plus 1 will be done before and the other plus 1 will be done after. So if you have a complicated or complex expression, then the plus plus before and after will make a difference. Okay, think about that. Okay. Of course, we also have decrement, and you also have prefix and prefix, which is the pre-decrement and post-decrement. It's only done by 1. Okay, increment or decrement by 1. Okay. So let's look at the operators. Addition plus, that's simple. Okay, if you have two values and the total, you can assign 25 plus 20, assign it to total. Okay, assignment. Okay, so subtraction, the same thing. Okay, make sure you have semicolon at the end. That's the syntax. Multiplication is by asterisk normally, and same thing. Division, same thing. Percent. Some of you may or may not know, percent is called modular. Modular. Okay, it's calculate the remainder, modulus, I think. Calculate the remainder after the divide. So really it's extract the remainder. Say for example, if we have 64 divided by 12, okay, then of course, after divide, the result is 5, remaining of 4. So if you do this, total 8% column size, the 8 left will be 4, because 12 times 5 is 60. So you have 4 left. So 8 left is 4, is the remainder. It's the remainder, okay? It's not the result, it's the remainder. Okay, sometimes it's useful, right? So when you need it, you see the ampersand. I mean, you see the percent. You know it's the remainder, okay? So remember that. So those are the basic arithmetic operands, and you know most of it. And if this one you don't, please pay attention to it and understand what it means. Of course, the unary arithmetic, we talk about the increment, the decrement. Okay, you do the increment, doesn't matter as prefix or postfix. You actually just add 1 to the value, and so is the decrement, decrease. You decrease by 1. There's another one, is negate, minus. That means you change the sign of the value. If you do a minus x, okay, all you are doing actually is do a, operation-wise, is do a 0 minus x. Okay, so change the sign of the element. If x is 5, then become minus 5. If x is minus 5, that become positive 5. Okay, you negate the value. All these three are unary operators. You only add on one operators. Okay? Operand, I'm sorry. Add on one operand. Like this. Next. Assignment. We have looked at it before. Assignment. All it is you evaluate something and you assign that to another thing. Of course, you look at this, that's why we say that it's not equal sign, because in algebra this is not valid, right? You cannot do that unless y is 0. You cannot have x equal to x plus y. So really it's not an equal sign, it's an assignment. You evaluate what's on the right and you assign it back to the left. So you could assign it to the same variable. Okay? Unlike other arithmetic, these two are not equal. They don't equate, but this is the assignment. Okay, make sense? There is a combined or short form for this. Okay, people like to use that. It's just a short form. There's no difference from the operation point of view, from the processing point of view. It's the same. It's just a short form. So when you want to add value to x, all you have to do is x plus equal y. Then you equate into this same expression, same statement. It's the same. Okay? So in case, now for this you say, oh, y is not that much different. But if you look at this, sometimes it's handy. You want to use a plus equal. You remember plus is an overloaded operator. It can be for addition. It can be for string concatenation, combine two string, right? So if I do this, it's much cleaner. You can just say quote this, and then you add the quote next, add the another statement after that, and you keep adding. So it's much cleaner. So sometimes it's nice to do that. So all you have to do to understand what it means when you see things like this. Okay? So it's a compound assignment. Okay, it's a short form. Okay. So that's the table for normal assignment, for compound assignment. Okay. You can also do multiplication, divide, or percent. Okay. Just always remember, if you don't expand it, then you'll know the result. Okay, quite simple. Once you use it a couple times, you should not have problem remembering it. Okay, so those are the assignments and the compound assignments. Okay, now we switch subject to the API, the math objects. We have talked about math. We have talked about operator for mathematics. we have talked about objects. Now, we in last section of the slides, we talk about date object. There's another one in JavaScript API called math objects. Very useful. As you know, a lot of your script will be manipulating data, so the math object is very helpful. That means you have predefined methods to manipulate the objects, so you don't have to do it yourself. So that's handy. Okay, like generating random numbers, extracting square roots, calculating some of the trigonometry values like sine, cosine. Okay. However, there's nothing to be instantiated. Unlike the date object, you actually keep a date record, right? Knowing what the date, time, and month, year, and things like that. So you have to keep the data. You have to keep the record of the data in order to manipulate it. But the math objects are a little bit different. You don't have to create a math object. The reason is the operand come from you. You provide the operand, the variables names or the value into the math methods, and then it does the calculation and other stuff for you. So you don't need to create an object. So no constructors. Okay, you don't instantiate. Okay, those things are called static objects from the object point of view. Okay, you don't have to really understand it. You don't know OO. However, if you do, that's what they are. They're static objects, and you can use the methods within the math object. Okay, so you can call those without an object. Let's look at it. Like those. So you can call math.absolute. You don't have to create an object because you are providing the data. You don't have to get it from the object. Like date, you have to get it from the object record, right? But here you don't. You provide the data. You want to find the absolute value of x, so you're providing it, the operand. So all it does is to do the operator for you to find the absolute of x. You know, arc, cosine, a cos, and all these trigonometry functions. Ceiling, the highest value, next highest value. Cosine, exponential. Floor is the lowest, the next lowest. We'll look at floor, okay, when we do random number. And natural logs, and max and means, and power, useful one, okay. And random number, we'll look at random number generator, okay. This is also used in the example in the book, listing 3.1 for the bingo card that we'll look at today. Okay, random number generator, and also use the floor command, okay, to create a random number for the bingo card. And you have round up, okay, the other functions, and square root is useful. So remember those. You have to know the name to use them, so please remember some of the common ones, so you can just use them. Random number, floor, square root, those are commonly used. Okay, and you'll be doing a lot of math, and of course you need to know the name of the math functions, methods. Okay. So there are also constants. We talk about, yes, there are many objects. Many methods for the math from the math API, but there are also constants that you don't have to define. You don't have to put in your program, like your natural log number e, 2.7183. Okay, the log 10. Okay, all these are predefined in pi. All values are predefined in the API. So all you have to do is you want to use like you have radius 3. You want to calculate the area. You do pi r squared, right? So all you have to do is the math.pi. Make sure it's capital M, okay? They are the definition of the object, not a single object. So use that value, math.pi, and then do multiply. Your radius is 3 and multiply 3 again. Then you get the area. you don't have to define 3.1416 in your program. You basically just use the math.py. And you notice that all these names, of course, the library, the API itself start with the object with a capital M, and all these constant we use all caps, okay? So when someone read, even if you define your own constant, you do the same thing. So when someone read your program, and then they know that particular value is a constant, like pi. Okay, please do that. It's a best practice, and most people will understand it. Okay. So we talk a little bit about controlling how JavaScript works with some of the numbers. So there is a term called NaN, not a number. What happened? Say you divide something, okay? Like this case, you want to send an alert with 5 divided by a string of A. It's not going to work because you cannot divide a string, right? So return an error. Or you divide it by 0, of course, then you'll return infinity, okay? Because there's an error. Okay, so that's to some of the particular situation, NaN and infinity will pop up. Okay, just remember what they are, what they mean. Okay, and because you have those, we also have methods, global numeric function methods. To do that is to protect your data. Like you don't want to divide by 0. You don't want to, have those incorrect calculation, mathematical calculation. So you need to do those to check, making sure they're correct to protect your data and your code. Okay. So we have the global functions is finite. Is it not a number? Okay. You can pass and floating point. Say if you have a string. From the string, you can do a pass the string and then it will return a floating point value for you. Or you can do a pass int and return a integer value. Okay, so you can use those functions, global functions, okay, to return the proper value and check, making sure the data is correct before you move forward. So that is important to validating your data. Remember we said before, particular JavaScript is the front-end script. You don't want to send the data to the server before things are correct. You don't want to send it to the server and then the server take the responsibility and checking them and then return it back to the user, send it to your script and then return back to the user, say no good, data is no good. That's too slow and rely too much on the server. You don't want to do that when you have thousands or millions of people connected to the server or processes connected to the server at the same time. So you definitely want to do it up front in the JavaScript. So your JavaScript will do all this checking, making sure the data is correct before you send it to the server and let them store it away. So that's the beauty of front-end processing through JavaScript. So you can do a lot because a lot of APIs and global functions are available for you to process. Okay. Next. Okay, conditional. Okay, there are other operators called ternary operators. Okay, this particular one, you evaluate the expression on the left. The first one within the parentheses. Based on its result, you determine whether the overall, the whole thing, now the whole thing is a value. Based on the expression here, the result, if it's true, then the whole statement will be equal to the true value. If the expression is false, then the whole evaluation becomes the false value. So example here, you want to assign something to x, a variable, it depends on whether y is greater than 0 or not. If y is greater than 0, then you put 1 in the x. If y is not is equal to 0 or less, then this 2 will be assigned to x. So it's a conditional assignment. It's a conditional assignment. Okay? So make sure you know how to read it. Okay? If it's true, it's the first value. If it's false, then the second value. And then the whole thing is a expression by itself. Okay? Okay. So there are other relational operators. We will learn this more because if you do a if-else, okay, if-else, you will need to know those to evaluate the truth or the false of the expression. Okay. Basically, compare the value of one expression or operand to another and return a Boolean result. Boolean is either true or false. Okay. So, double equal sign is compare. See whether those two are equal on the left and right. And this is not equal. Okay, with an exclamation equal or called bang equal. Okay, that means if it's not equal, it's true. If it's equal, then it's not true. So it's a reverse of the other. Okay, greater than, if the first value on the left is greater than y, the other one on the right, and less than the same thing. And greater than or equal, less than or equal. Now people tend to be careless when they use the greater than or greater than equal or less than equal. The equal sign does play a significant change to your program flow. Okay, because when they are equal, this is true. But when this one is equal, they are not. So with that means they make a difference. Okay, when x equal to y. So with or without the equal sign is very critical to your program flow. So do not be careless. Just put in greater than or less than, ignoring the equal sign. Okay, if it's needed. So be careful with that. Particularly when you deal with array, when you deal with things that will start with 0 and up to n minus 1. Okay, so you want to x less than n, not x less than n or equal to n. Otherwise you will fail on the last case when x equal to n. Okay, so be careful with that. So don't ignore that. They are not the same, and they do make a big difference when you don't apply them properly. Okay. There are also others. You can connect multiple expressions by using the logical operands double n, double ampersand, or double stroke, that we call it, which is on right above your enter key. Okay, with the shift on the backslash. Okay, you use double of them. That means logical OR. Okay, and then of course there's also a negate, a not. Okay, so that means now go back to the order of operand or operations. So just like mathematics, right? Parentheses will go first. So you evaluate this first, whether x equal to 20. And then you evaluate this second, y equal to 25 or not. If we have those two values, then those two are true. True and true, which is true, right? So true and false is false. False and false is false, okay? False and true is false. So you have to have both true to be true on this double ampersand n. If you use OR, double stroke here, the same thing, you evaluate this first and you evaluate this second. So the first one is true. The second one, y is less than 10, which is false. But since you have already one is true, so true and false it's or true or false, then it's still true. Okay, make sure you know how to evaluate them. And in the case of x on this one and negate, I mean whether the reverse. So if x equal to 20, which is true, but since you negate it, then become false. So, okay, be careful how to use them. So those are the commonly used operands, like those. Okay, all this, when we talk about conditional statement, control of flow, and you have to use those. You have to use them. The if-else case, you have to use them. Okay? So make sure you understand each of them. That's important. Or any programming language, they have similar things. So it should not be a surprise, and it should be easy for you to manipulate them. And if you don't, do a little bit study on it, and maybe go to the tutorial to understand a little bit better from outside W3 school. Okay, those are simple operands that operators that you can use. Okay, please remember and remember how to use it and when to use them. Okay. Now we switch to another topic, running time commands. Okay, we are not going to detail it. This is the only slide we have. But however, you can use it and do some research on it if you need when you use it. And it is good. It helps to make your, sometimes you need them. Sometimes you just make your JavaScript more dynamic, and the user will feel the differences. Okay. So what are those? Time delayed command is a command that you can run and specific a time in millisecond. Okay, you gotta understand have passed. Okay, so you can set a timeout and delay it for that milliseconds. Okay, and after you can clear the time. It works together. Time interval is a little bit different. Okay, you set up the interval time. Run the same command but repeat it at a specific interval. Okay, so you set the interval this way, and then afterward you can clear it. Okay, so play with them. It's fun to do that. So when you want to, run something, delay it, and have the user feel the effects, and you can do that. Set a time interval to repeat something, and set a time interval or set the timeout to delay the command to be executed. Okay, but remember syntax, and they are in milliseconds. Okay, so to do that, then it will make your script more fun to look at. Get some effect on the script. So we are not going to do too much with them, but if you do need to add on for your own script, please do that. It will be fun to do it. There's a couple commands and put it in. It will make it different and look interesting sometimes. Okay, so play with them if you need to, and that will make your script more fun for the user. Okay, I think that's all the slides I'm going to cover today. Okay, that's good. It's not a lot of slides, but there are a lot of information. So we go with objects first. Some definition of the object and how to use them, the date object, and then the math object, and the API, and some of the system functions, constants, and how to use them, and some commands like that too. And we talk about the arithmetic operator, and how to manipulate operands, binary, unary, ternary operations. Okay, and make sure you understand what they are. And when we talk about conditions, if else, those, you will need to use these operators. Okay, and to manipulate your data. Of course, those are basic arithmetic operations, so it should not be difficult for you to absorb the idea. Okay, but you just need to know how to use them in your script. That's all. Okay. So this is 10:35. We will stop for 5 minutes. Okay. The lecture is completed for today. Okay. Next thing we're going to do before we go on a break is to go to a go to the book on page 58 or around 58 for the listing 3.1, which is a bingo card program. So we'll go over that, okay, and then I'll do some explanation and how to do that. That is for a similar situation for assignment 2.1. By end of the week, you need to submit that for a chessboard, 8x8 chessboard. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay. That's all it is. So we'll close up the lecture today. However, we will come back in 5 minutes to do a live demo and show and tell on the bingo card. Okay, so let's take a 5 minutes break. We'll come back about 10:40-ish. Thank you. Okay, I am back. Let's take a look. Okay, now we're done with the lecture. Let's go to, I think, the speaker. The camera seems to be working. Okay. Let's go ahead and start it, making sure everything is still sharing. Yes, sharing camera, sharing microphone. Still recording. And the conference still good. Let's go to full screen mode again. And then we'll bring up Eclipse and take a look on the book also. Okay. So let me go to full screen mode. Okay, now we're in full screen mode. Move it away. Everything seems to be still working, I think. Okay, let's go ahead and making sure conference is good. Go back to your account. Okay, and the full screen mode. Okay, good. As I said, after the class, I'll change it. It's not really page 58. I'll put down the listing 3.1. Okay, so the assignment is to create an 8x8 chessboard by end of this week. Okay, this is the assignment 2.1, and you need to create an 8x8 chessboard for the 8 queen. Now you don't have to do the whole thing. All you have to do is create a chessboard. Okay, and the way to do that is using a similar thing. Now we haven't talked about the for loop yet. We'll talk about on Thursday. Okay, but this is for end of the week, so we'll start the discussion now. On Thursday, the second part of the lecture also is to go further into this bingo card. Okay, in page 58 or listing 3.1 is the bingo card software listing. We'll go over that, okay, today a little bit to start you with, and then on Thursday we'll continue deeper into how to complete the true bingo card function, okay, in the book. Okay, your chessboard will be similar, but you don't have to do too much with it yet, other than just create a board, okay, using a similar mechanism that we use for the bingo card. That's what I'm going over. Just to go over that so we can explain a little bit more how it works. So for some of you are still not yet familiar with it, or even not familiar with the HTML, and so take a look on it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. Now, before we start, this is the book, the Kindle book. It appears that some of you do not have the Kindle book. If you don't, please send an email to synchronic.uat.edu. I think synchronic@uat.edu. Okay, so make sure you get you may have Kindle book already, or Kindle book apps on your PC, like I have here. But you need to have an email from Amazon to download the book onto your application in order to view, like what I did here. Once you have it, then you can view it in your Kindle, when you view it in your PC, and they will be the same. All the bookmarks, everything is set up the same. So that's what I have on the bookmark, okay? I bookmarked this one. Is in chapter 3, okay? The page number, as I said, like this, show as page 50, but in the assignment, it is 58, because the font size is different. Okay, so don't worry about the page. Most likely, most important, you go to table 3.1 or listing 3.1 in the first part of your book, chapter 3, and you'll find them. Okay, so that's it. That's the 3.1 listing. Okay, this is the listing creating. Let me load it up into Eclipse. I already have them, so let me show you in Eclipse. We're starting the neon. I don't know whether I change that one to unpin it first. Let me pin this one to taskbar. Okay, so I don't have to look for it again. So now I have Eclipse neon running by default. Okay, same thing. Loading. Almost done. Okay, here we go. That's the last one. Let's close them all. I can open up a new one. It's on the desktop. Bingo. Open. Import it as bingo. Okay, finish. So I already have created. Okay, so this is the document. I think it's big enough. Yes, so you should be able to see that it's the same program. I just cut paste and put it in here. Change the name a little bit since the book, as you can see, the book used script 0, 1, 2, 3. It's not very descriptive. Okay, so they're all by numbers. So I changed that the name to be bingo. Okay, bingo JS, JS1. I mean bingo 2 JS 2, 3, 4. So we'll talk about those, and also the bingo CSS. Okay, so we include the style sheet up front in the top, in the head section. Include the JavaScript file. Bingo, let's change it back to bingo first. Start with bingo. I was testing bingo 3. Okay, and we save it. Okay, let's take a look on the style sheet first. Okay, it's not much. You can learn a little bit from it if you are not familiar with CSS. Okay, so we define some of the features, the properties on the body and the heading for the table 2, table head, and the table, the border, the data within the table. Also have a couple specific ID and class. Okay, for setting up specific field. Okay, so before we begin, let's take a look on that. What does it generate first? What do we want output wise? A bit slow. Bringing up Firefox. Okay, so that's what it is. It's a bingo card. I'm not familiar with bingos, honestly. I never played bingo before. So I know what it is, but I never play with it or go to play bingos in casino or places. So what it is that everyone provide a bingo card, right? Then they draw some number, then you click on which one is completed, and then whether you see, you win or not. So the middle one is called free. Okay, so you can do a cross or vertical or horizontal. I think that's how it works, but that's not our discussion here, not on gambling it, but how to create this card electronically on your screen. So that's what this program does. Okay, So the heading is bingo, and each of the column will have a set of numbers, and each of them have a range. The first one is from 1 to 15, 16 to 30. Now, of course, you can see they are not correct because I'm using the bingo one. So what we do in the book is you give the random number generator, you create a bingo card first, then you use JavaScript, the random number generator, to generate numbers on each of the cell within the bingo card, except this one, of course. Okay. Now, because we didn't provide any restriction, so we just use any random number. Now, since it's 1 to 15, and the last one is up to 75, okay? So our number will be from 1 to 75. That's our range. Okay? So you can see none of the random number is more than 75 or less than 1. So it will be 1 to 75. If it's correct, it will be 1 to 15 range, 16 to 30, so on and so forth, up to 75. Okay? So now the first version is not correct because it doesn't actually do the range checking, but we'll look into that on Thursday. Okay? But today the main thing is how to do this basic card. We do things one at a time, progressively, right? You cannot just put everything together and then test it. It's just more difficult to do. So we always say we develop something first, gradually, and then do it a little bit at a time. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Okay, but before we do, let's double check, making sure everything is still, the camera still good, the speaker seems still good. Okay, let's make sure we do. Now we'll go to the listening. Third thing we want to do is look at the JavaScript. Okay, so basically you have 3 files. If in the book you can see listing 3.1, that's the 3.1 listing. Okay, and create a card just like we look at on the screen. 3.2 is the CSS file we just looked at. Okay, and listing 3.3 is the JavaScript. It's pretty simple, it's just few lines. Okay, that's JavaScript. So those are the 3 things you need to create this board, card, bingo card. Okay, that's what you need. So for your assignment this weekend, then the same thing. I put some comments in there. Okay, same thing. You need to create 3 files. Is your chessboard HTML, chessboard CSS, chessboard.js, and your chessboard.js is quite simple. All you have to do is do an initialization like that, do a window unload, and create a function, okay, to do that. Okay, so we'll talk about this, and then you can relate that to your chessboard program. Now you have to do, you will do less. This bingo card program is more complicated when we go through it on Thursday. But I think it's nice to go over them so you will learn a little bit more about JavaScript. But for your assignment this weekend, all you are going to do is create a 8x8 board instead of a bingo card. 8x8 chessboard. Okay, it's a little bit different. Okay. Now, of course, the coloring will be slightly different on a chessboard. So think about that. Okay. But let's take a look on it on this program first. First is the HTML. We include those style sheets and then the JS file. Then, of course, you create a heading. Let's move it away a little bit. Okay. And you create the table. A table. The first row is the header, bingo. Then you do each of the row. We name each of the row by the name of square 0, and then 5, and 10. okay, 14 and 19. You look at it, is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 5, 6, 7, 8. So it start in 0 and 5 and 10, 14 up to 18 and 19, 21, 22, 23, 24. You have a 5 by 5, but since the middle one is free, is nothing there. So you total have 24 squares to fill in. 24 squares from 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So from 0 to 23. Okay, so that's why the first row is 0, 5, 10, 14. Second row is 1, 6, 11, 15, 20. So 2. Now this one is free. Okay, the middle one is free. And if you look at the CSS, we use a specific color, a pink color, for the free. Or when you click on something, we'll show it on Thursday, and then you will change that color also, whatever you pick. Okay. So that's why it's free here with the ID. Okay. So the last two rows, same thing, up to 23. The purpose to name each of them with an ID is you can identify them, and then you can modify it using JavaScript. And why numbers? Because using number is much easier to do a loop. Okay, a counting loop we call. We'll look into that. Okay. You can name them individually, but then your program can be very messy to name each of them, differently. Square one, left one, this. I mean, if you use different name, you don't have a convention for your name for each of the square. It's harder to run a loop to manipulate it. Okay, so that's why, just like you have to have the last name, right, for your siblings. So easier to identify all your siblings. So basically you have your last name square here, and then you have a number for each of the individual square. So you can identify them easily. Okay, using number is just easier for you to do in a loop. Okay, that's the purpose. Okay. Okay, that's all it is. And of course, the last thing is hypertext link. Okay, so you can reload. Okay, reload a new card when it's needed. That's all. So as we said before, the purpose of HTML is to have all your data, content, and line up in HTML. So you have the basic things already defined. Then you use the CSS to change the styling. Okay, the border, the color, everything, and some specific items that you can pick and change color if it's needed. Okay. Now let's take a look on the JavaScript file. It's pretty simple. This is just comment. Remember how to do comments, right? Slash, asterisk, asterisk, slash. So in the editor, it will show us green. Or use double slash. It's a single line comment. Okay, all show up as green. Okay, they have no effect on how the program works. Okay. So, same thing. Since we want to load it up and initialize the board, initialize the card up front. So we'll use the feature on load. So when the window loaded with HTML, after it's loaded, then we want to call a function called initAll, same as what I did last time. In this initAll, there's nothing else other than one function, one feature is to run a loop, a for loop. We will talk more about that next time, but just give you a heads up how it works, and most of you already have the knowledge of how loop works. So it is a counting loop. So you start with 0 and go to 20 less than 24. Total of 24 items, remember? Because this one is not something you modify. So total of 24 items. That means it's from 0 to 24. Less than. That means from 0 to 23. 0 to 23. Okay? You looked at your HTML. The last items is square 23. Okay, so when you address to that, it is the square plus the number, which is I, which is a counter. So the first item when you go through this loop is square 0, then square 1 up to square 23. When I equal 24, since it's not less than 24, then it will quit. So it will only work on I equal to 0 to 23, which is exactly what we have, from 0 to 23. Okay? So now we have all set up. All squares within the bingo card were identified. And they are using a number mechanism, using the identifier square plus a number. So we use a counter, go from 0 to 23, and increment it. Remember the incrementation? Increment that in each loop. So it go from 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 23. Okay, so increment it. Okay. Then what do we do within this block of code? From open, so you see the mark, when you highlight 1, it will find the end. So you see this block. Okay. So what we're going to do here, so on each of the square, we want to create a random number, and using the method document get elements by the name, by the identification name, and then change the inner HTML to the new number, the random number. So first thing first is create a random number. Then you using the get element by ID, identify which square you want to modify, and then you provide that, assign that number into that HTML value. Then you're done. Okay, the mechanism is simple. Okay, so that's what you get. Each of them is a random number from 0 up to square 23. Okay, so it should be quite straightforward. Of course, we have not done this, we have not checked, making sure the number you generate fall within that range. We haven't checked it yet. Okay, that's okay, one at a time, right? We'll do that on Thursday. So then how we generate the number, random number? As we said in the slides, we are going to use, making use of the math object method called random and floor. As we said before, just like any arithmetic, you go from inside to outside, right? So the first thing on this statement is to look at what's inside this parenthesis. The first thing it does is to do a math random number. Okay, a random number generator in the math API to generate a number from 0 to 0.9999999. Okay, that's what it is. That means from 0 to be less than 1, not equal to 1, less than 1. Okay, so from 0.00000 up to 0.9999999, never equal to 1. That's what the random number generator is for, to create that range of number. So when you call math.random, it will give you one of those numbers, a floating point number from 0 equal less than or equal, not less than, equal or greater than 0, equal or greater than 0, but less than 1, not equal to 1. Okay, so it's equal or greater than 0, equal or greater than 0, but less than 1, will not be equal to 1. That's the math random generator. Okay, once you have the number, you multiply that by your range, which is 75, right, from 1 to 75. So if you multiply that random number, that means the most you get is 0. The smallest number you get is 0, because if you get equal to 0 from a random number, so the smallest number is 0. The highest number, okay, is not 75. It's 74 point something, right? not 75, because it's never equal to 1. So that means the number will be from 0 to 74-ish. Okay? We don't want, since we want a digit number, we don't want floating point. So we do a floor, okay, on this. We do a floor. After you get this number, you do a floor. A floor means is the next lowest integer value. So 0, lowest is 0. So you get 0. You have 74.99999. Then you do a floor. You don't get 75, you get 74, because that's the floor, right? The ceiling is 75. The floor is 74. It's not truncation or round up, okay? You just take the lowest integer value from that range. So when you have 74.9999999, the floor is on 74. So out of this whole thing, first you get the value from 0 to 0.00 to 74.9999, and then you do a floor, then you get 0 or up to 74, right? Up to 74. But our range is 75, so add 1. You add 1. That means now your range is from 1 to 75, random number. So the whole statement here will find a number, a random number, by using the random number generator, and create a number from 1 to 75. This is a technique commonly used for random number generator. First, you find the random number, call the random number generator, multiply the range, the maximum, and you do a floor. So from 0 to 1 less than the maximum, you add 1 back. Then you get the range. Okay, 1 to 75. That's your range, right? So that means by doing that, any number created out of that on the right side will be from 1 to 75. You assign it into a new number. Okay? With the new number here, now you can assign that. Once you identify which square, you can just assign that new number, random number, into the square. So that's why none of the number is greater than 75. It's either or less than or equal to 0. It will be 1 or equal to 1 up to 75 or equal to 75. Okay? So fit within this range, 1 to 75 range. Okay? That's how we do the methods, the functions. We're using random number generator, and we use the floor to get a range for this new number from 1 to 75, and then assign it, identify the square, and locate them by using the ID, the square plus the number. Once you identified it, then you change the information within that square. Okay? That's it. That's how you, this is a basic program. That's what it said. Okay? You use the HTML to set up a table and give an ID for each of the square by using a number scheme that we can use in a loop. Once you have it, set up the CSS file to make your bingo card look nice on the screen with all these different fonts and color, particularly the middle part, the free. Okay. Once you have that, then you want to fill in the blank. Now that's the first two things you need to do on the chessboard also. You do that, set up a chessboard, then you're all good. Okay. Then the next thing is to create a JavaScript file to modify whatever is needed on the chessboard. Okay. So 3 files, that's what you need. Let's take a look on the and make sure everything's still working. The camera still works. The speaker seems to be okay. Okay, so it looks good. Let's go back to Okay, full screen mode. Okay, now it's all good. If you read ahead in the book, that's what it is. Listing 1, 2, and 3, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. And then from that on, it will continue changing this program to make it a true bingo card. Okay, so the book also have good explanation of each of the steps, just like what I did. So review it, okay, understand what it is, what we used, the floor, the random number, all this. And afterward, it also start to change it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next on Thursday, to explain what we can change to make this truly working, okay, for a bingo card. That's what we're going to do next on Thursday. Okay, with that said, that should conclude our session, on the demo. Let's close out this first, go back to the full screen mode. So we'll continue with the bingo card on Thursday, just like the book did, and then complete that. Okay, we're still good. Okay, good. So this is your assignment for this weekend. You will create an 8x8 chessboard with 8 queens. Okay. So for this particular assignment, you are creating a board. Use an array, create a chessboard square, just like we did in the bingo card, and use a for loop to generate the squares. Now remember, the square on the chessboard are different colors, right? Black and white colors, alternate. So check it out, okay? Make sure you create that, a board. And using a for loop, just like we did, but instead of 0 to 24, we use 0 to 63. Well, actually really wrong. It's not 0 to 63. It should be 0 to 64, since it's less than. Okay, I think this is incorrect. I'm going to change that. But be careful with what you're doing. Name them properly, just like we did in the bingo card, using a for loop similar to what we did, and then create the board, the black and white board. That's it. That's your assignment. So you need a HTML file to define the table for 8x8 table, and define using a CSS to define the style and color on the border, everything, and then the color for black and white, and then using a JavaScript, just like what we did on the bingo card, using a loop, and each of the square when you encounter, you change the color basically of it. Okay, then you're done. In the meantime, take a look on what is a queen. I am not familiar with a queen. I'm not good at chess. But take a look on 8 queens. I think the way 8 queen works is you have 8 queens, you put on the board, but each of them will not interfere with the other. That's the 8 queen problem. Okay? So you put 8 queens on the board, just like this is calendar. It's like it's like a board. Then you put each of the queen here, and then you can put another queen here, okay, and put a queen here. Then they don't interfere because the queen can take anything across or in diagonal form. So you can put 8 queen and they don't interfere with each other. So 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, okay, and then you can put 1 here somewhere, okay, then they don't interfere. So you put 8 queens on the board and they don't interfere with each other, okay, and they're safe. That's what the 8 queen is, okay. So you can try to put some queens in there, but I'm not asking you to solve the 8 queen problem, okay? I'm not asking you. But we are asking you to create the chessboard. The 8 by 8 chessboard with different colors. Okay, maybe put a queen in there. 1 queen, just to make it nice. But mainly is for you to exercise how to do that 8 by 8 board, and how to use the CSS to style the board, and how to use a loop to do it properly. Okay, so that's what you, so you don't have to do the whole solving the 8 queen, but put a queen in there somewhere. That would be nice. Okay, just include an image for the queen if you wanted to. Okay, make it look nice. That's all. That's your assignment. So it's not too much, but I want you to exercise those features. Okay, that's all for today. Okay, let me go back to the presentation mode. Everything seems to be working, the speaker and the camera, so we are good. So let me quit out of full screen mode. Now we're back in the presentation. We're done. So I'm closing out this. Thanks for joining, and thanks for reviewing this. Bye. I'll stop recording now. I will also stop the YouTube recording.